probably one of my favorite topics on the planet, and this is patient endurance. I did a solo episode on this years ago, and I think now it's time to do it again. So what I did was I got the transcript from that and I cleaned it up really, really good to present to you for this session. Patient endurance is a valuable internal resource for getting through and past early alcohol recovery and persevering through life's difficulties. It involves an even temper, tolerance, understanding, and the ability to accept delays with equanimity. Cultivating patient endurance can help build resilience, character, and hope. The Bible emphasizes patient endurance as an important element of character development. Developing patient endurance, including a cheerful and hopeful endurance of hardship, can greatly benefit those recovering from substance abuse and other challenges. In this essay, I will teach you about patient endurance and how to increase it because this is one of the most valuable resources, essentially an internal resource. This invisible resource will guide you in promoting powerfully in one's life, how you can use patient endurance, foster it, cultivate it, nurture it, increase it, and then develop it into not just a habit, but something akin to a habitus, Habitus. I'll put that in the chat. Habitus, I love this word. When something is a habitus, that's the ultimate habit. It's identity transformation, not behavior modification. So when you've made patient endurance part of your habitus, it's part of your identity. Eventually, this endurance can become part of your character, intertwining your identity with someone who patiently endures through trying circumstances. Let's face it, recovering from alcohol use, disorder, pills, heroin, fentanyl, gambling, shopping, sex, porn, or any other type of addiction can be challenging. There are also many individuals grappling with polysubstance use, including illicit drugs like fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamines. I've attempted many of these substances and more during my past struggles with addiction, and one thing I lacked back then was patient endurance. I had high levels of impulsiveness, sensitivity, that's nervous system sensitivity, and empathy trait, very low distress tolerance, and numerous unmanaged, untreated, and undiagnosed anxiety and depression issues that I experienced. It has taken me a long time to develop, and I'm still working on it. However, I would say I'm exponentially increased my patient endurance, or patience, because it's necessary. I'm 45 now, and if I were still impatient, impulsive, and had a very low distress tolerance, trust me, I'm not even close to being super optimized in those areas. If I were like I used to be, though, I don't think I would be alive today. To navigate life, especially over an average lifespan of 75 to 85 years, we endure a lot of struggles, trials, and tribulations, especially now given the global situation. Here in America, I know the issues extend beyond this country. There is division, polarization, and animosity. Some people suffer, but since the lockdowns, look at the economy, the inflation, the rates of alcohol and other drug addictions, the deaths due to alcoholism, plus drug overdoses, cancers, heart disease, mass shootings, evictions, and homelessness. It's just overwhelming. For anyone like me who has even a mild empath trait, being an empath means describing or absorbing the emotions of others and being in tune with their feelings. That's a very simplistic and reductive way to describe it. It's much more complicated than that. However, I've noticed that many of my clients who are quitting alcohol and other drugs, as well as those I'm corresponding with online, are empaths. They're highly sensitive people and can feel, as I can feel, the collective energy of the planet's suffering. As strange as that may sound, substantial research has been conducted into the trait of the highly sensitive person. The scientific term for this is sensory processing sensitivity, which refers to having a highly active central nervous system compared to those without this sensitivity. This differs from being an empath. You can have one trait, both, or neither, in mild, moderate, or extreme cases. I identify as a moderate empath with moderate SPS, sensory processing sensitivity. Regardless, you certainly don't need to have high sensitivity or empath trait to feel the energies around you or be somewhat in tune with the suffering. So, that was a long-winded way of leading into patient endurance. This concept even draws from the Christian faith, and Buddha too, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. Much originates from the teachings of Jesus, or Yeshua, and the scriptures. While this isn't a religious or faith-based episode, I appreciate incorporating every modality of addiction treatment and recovery that may help someone. I encourage you, dear reader, to take what resonates with you and leave the rest, forging your path forward based on what aligns with you and feels like a good fit. So I'm going to discuss the technical terms of patient endurance and their definitions. And I'll also touch a little on the Christian faith-based aspect because I think it's really interesting. I know a lot of you, not all of you, but many of you will resonate with this. Let's start with the definition from the online dictionary. It says, 1. Enduring trying circumstances with even temper. That's powerful. Read that again. Enduring trying circumstances with even temper. Acceptance, non-attachment, non-aversion, equanimity, groundedness, serenity. That's the opposite of what I experienced when I was struggling with substance addiction and trying to quit, especially in my early recovery periods. Most of the time back in my 20s and early 30s when I was trying to quit, I mostly practiced harm reduction or complete abstinence. At times I did some recovery work, some 12-step work, or whatever, but back then I had a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. I had never heard the terms self-development, personal development, or personal growth. This was before the internet became mainstream. Back when I was starting with addiction, I didn't have a smartphone or a computer. I didn't get my first computer until I was 27 years old, and I waited to get a smartphone until I was in my mid-30s. I believe I was around 34, 2 years after I quit alcohol and other drugs. So I was a late bloomer with technology and was illiterate when using computers or the internet, especially on phones. Let's read that definition again. Enduring trying circumstances with even temper. It seems that most of the people I know, if not all of them, and likely most people in America, are enduring trying circumstances right now. Whether at the gas pumps, grocery stores, or while paying bills, we're all going through it. Enduring trying circumstances. And what does even temper even mean? Our temper reflects our state of mind, whether angry or calm. It can also refer to the degree of hardness or elasticity in steel or other metals. Still, in this context, metallurgy aside, I mean temper as a person's state of being or their psyche, whether calm or angry, patient or impatient, steadfast or impulsive, etc. Returning to the meanings of patient endurance, let's move on to number 2, which states tolerant, understanding. Number 3 says capable of accepting delay with equanimity. I love equanimity, but I dislike delays. Let me just put that out there. When I was younger, just a few years into my post-addiction life, I was incredibly impatient. Oh gosh. Just ask any of my family or friends from that time. They would say, Matt was so impatient, he was so annoying with his impatience, end quote. I absolutely couldn't stand delays. Sometimes I couldn't even wait for someone to finish speaking before I would cut them off. That's how much I loathed delays. When it came to a delayed package, a postponed raise, or waiting for a job, notification, or school acceptance, I simply couldn't handle it. I wanted what I wanted, when I wanted it, which was usually yesterday or the week before. And I love equanimity. It embodies mental calmness. It signifies having composure and even temper, balance, smoothness, groundedness, and stability, particularly during challenging situations. Equanimity can be synonymous with calmness, regardless of what's occurring around you. Being in a state of equanimity means maintaining mental calm and composure. You could also throw poise in there, P-O-I-S-E, calmness, composure, poise, as well as resilience, non-attachment, non-grasping, and we could throw in non-aversion and non-ignorance. There's a saying I've heard that goes, quote, wearing the world like a loose garment, or letting the struggles of life flow off you like water off a duck's back, end quote. These illustrate ways to connect with equanimity, being in the world but not of it. Now, returning to patient endurance, number 4 is persevering or diligent, a patient worker. Let's discuss perseverance. It's like persistence, a determination to continue doing something, even when it's difficult and when significant delays are in achieving the desired outcome. It requires serious perseverance and diligence. If you're tired, sure, maybe you take a break for the day. You might not accomplish anything at all, but if you don't drink or use other drugs by the end of the day, even if you didn't do anything else, that's perseverance, that's persistence, and that's a huge win. Each day that you don't poison your system with poison alcohol, which I literally view as not just a poison, but just thinking about consuming it, I can make myself feel sick just thinking about the smell. That took a long time and doing the work that I do, but every person can get there quickly or slowly depending on the person. And it's not always it's rarely a linear process. Dealing with emotions has been one of the most challenging aspects of my life. I enjoy the positive emotions. I like feeling happy and even just okay. And I've come to terms with that. In the past, I wasn't satisfied. I wanted to feel good, great, extraordinary, or totally euphoric. I craved those intensely awesome emotions and experiences all the time. Could have a lot to do with me having the high sensation seeking trait, which a lot of people do that have substance use disorders. Now I'm okay with simply being. Okay with simply being, feeling all right, feeling content. Sometimes I go through long stretches of patiently enduring and being content. Sure, it's not the most exciting phase of life at times. Still, it's acceptable because I now understand that going back to seeking a huge dopamine fix, returning to drinking, using heroin, or snorting oxycodone is a dead end street. Dead end street. I even wrote a song with that same title back in my late 20s. I played in a band and wrote about half or 70% of the songs as the lead guitarist. I didn't sing, but I wrote many lyrics for our rhythm guitar player and lead singer, as well as our drummer. We had a fantastic drummer, Nikolai, who could play better than anyone I'd ever played with. Our styles fit together well. He could sing exceptionally while playing the drums. That was so crazy to watch. He could sing and play drums really well. He was an expert drummer and singer simultaneous. That was one of the most talented things I'd ever seen. The guy was incredibly talented. It was ridiculous, and I had much fun playing with them. But anyway, I digress. Let's return to patient endurance. We talked about perseverance, persistence, equanimity, temper, tolerance, understanding, accepting delays, and diligence. All fantastic qualities, right? They are highly relevant for anyone trying to overcome a substance use issue or any addiction or habit they wish to break. I chose this topic for today's episode because we could all benefit from some patient endurance right now. And you know what? Seriously, we could use a lot of it. Let's be honest and straightforward. Almost everyone, probably 90% or more of the total human population, needs more patient endurance during these challenging times. Just look at everything happening in the world. Oh my goodness. Things seemed great several years ago, at least here in America. It was terrific. Now it feels like they keep getting worse and worse. Despite all that, we can create our own little bubble in our homes and within our circles of family and friends, an environment of patient endurance, equanimity, unconditional love, self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, acceptance of others, and forgiveness of others. This solidifies what the Bible, Jesus, and the Gospels teach about patient endurance. Before these comprehensive internet searches became available, I knew little about the world and our history. I only learned what I was taught in school. Now I can pick up my phone or sit down at my laptop to discover so much about virtually any topic. I don't take it for granted. It's a significant resource we have. In one of my internet searches, I found a question. Where in the Bible is patient endurance discussed? It references Romans 5:3-4, which states that perseverance produces character. Character is a topic my co-host and friend Chris Scott and I have explored extensively on this show. How to optimize and truly transform your identity and character into someone who wouldn't even consider drinking, using other drugs, or whatever a person is trying to quit. It's possible to rebuild your character from the ground up. When I hit rock bottom, as I did after overdosing on methadone and Valium, while being an alcoholic and dependent on opioids and benzos, I faced the harsh reality of my situation. Following that overdose, I almost left my then 18-month-old daughter, Willow, fatherless for the rest of her life. she was still under 2 years old. That was such a rock bottom, and I was just a shell of a man, taken to such horrible depths in an attempt to escape unpleasant emotions and feelings. The silver lining for me was that after I survived that overdose, by some sort of miracle, I reflected on it. I've shared the story many times on the show, but it truly felt miraculous, because I was just 1 or 2 minutes away from being dead. The ambulance arrived just in time and administered Narcan, which is naloxone, an opioid antagonist, medication that plunged me into instant withdrawal. I then spent a week in the hospital battling pneumonia, a lung infection, and was unconscious and sedated for the first few days with a breathing tube down my throat. A hunch, a mother's intuition, led my mom to think, "Oh my gosh, I need to check on Matthew." Her instinct came at the perfect moment. She called an ambulance, which arrived very quickly. If she hadn't acted on that feeling, if that intuition hadn't come to her at all, and if the EMTs hadn't arrived exactly when they did, not a minute or two later, I wouldn't be speaking to you now. From that completely debilitated, broken state, that was my ultimate rock bottom. Like the author of the Harry Potter books said in her commencement speech many years ago, quote, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation upon which I rebuilt my life." And end quote. And then I put, "and upon which I rebuilt my character." Returning to Romans 5:3-4, perseverance produces character. Here's a quote from it. Quote, "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope." The article titled Patient Endurance, the Final Test, states, "Let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing." James 1:4. This is quite lengthy, and I found it very valuable. I'll select a few statements to include in this show. If you are entirely opposed to anything related to the teachings of Jesus, religion, spirituality, or Christianity, feel free to skip to the conclusion. However, I encourage you to keep an open mind. I'm not a Christian, but I value learning from various sources. I probably act more like a Christian than a lot of Christians. I would call myself a mystical, Christian, Buddhist, Taoist, naturalist maybe. I don't label myself as anything, neither an addict, an alcoholic, a person in recovery, a Christian, or a spiritual person. I see my identity as an eternal consciousness experiencing life through a biological body and a third density mind. That's my belief and current perspective, and it doesn't reflect on you or your beliefs. Even if you are, like I once was, completely opposed to anything related to religion, I encourage you to listen. One of these statements on patient endurance could be the missing link to optimizing your life. Here's the quote, and we're getting to the very end here. "The scriptures consistently depict patience as a crucial component of character. Its necessity is evident in every aspect of human experience. To be fair, under present conditions, one must be patient, not hasty, for it would be unjust to show impatience and harshness toward the unavoidable flaws and weaknesses of our fellow men. Therefore, the essence of a sound mind requires exercising patience when engaging with fallen humanity. God himself embodies this quality of patience and has practiced it for a long time." You could replace the word God with creator or universe or grand master of universal design, God, God, the mysterium, the plenum, the 0 point, intelligent infinity. What are the Native Americans? Oh, great spirit. In the next age, as the church interacts with the world, it will need to demonstrate considerable patience. And in our current circumstances, we continually require it to cultivate the character essential for a place on the throne with our Lord. End quote. Patience is closely linked to love and mercy. If God were unloving and unmerciful, he would lack patience. Unfortunately, in humanity's current flawed and fallen state, patience is scarce, although it is sometimes displayed outwardly for the sake of appearances. This godlike quality, like all character traits inherent in God and in all perfect beings created in his likeness, has been largely diminished in humanity due to the fall of the first couple. In the New Testament, 2 Greek words are translated as patience. One signifies forbearance and long-suffering, while the other conveys the notion of cheerful or hopeful endurance. I appreciate the concept of cheerful or hopeful endurance. The title of this is on patient endurance. It's an improvement. Not only is it patient endurance, but it also encompasses hopeful and cheerful endurance. Maintaining cheerful, patient, and hopeful endurance through the most suffering and challenging times undoubtedly puts you in a much better position. Now back to the article. Quote, "The latter term is used in our text, and it carries a deeper meaning than what we typically associate with patience. This steadfastness, the cheerful and willing endurance of adversity, reflects an element of character rather than just a temporary suppression of feelings or actions. It signifies a growth of heart and character that manifests as endurance of wrongs or afflictions with contentment, without rebelling against one's will, and with complete acceptance of the requirements of divine wisdom and love, which, while allowing present evils, has assured us that in due time they will be overcome." End quote. In summary, patient endurance can be compared to resilience. Technically, it involves enduring challenging circumstances, such as addiction, life in general, early recovery, navigating through a divorce, dealing with anxiety, losing a loved one to illness, or similar trials. It's about facing these trying circumstances and situations with an even keeled temper, equanimity, tolerance, and understanding, love, compassion, and the ability to acceptance of delays calmly, persevere diligently, and cultivate a patient mindset. The end.